Okay. Call the meeting to order. The October 9th meeting of the Corridor Improvement Authority for Delta Township. Welcome, everybody. All right, we are going to do a roll call real quick. So Tony?
Here.
Scott?
Here.
Ken's not here. Calvin?
Here.
And then Laura's not here and Rachel's not here. Okay, so we do have it. And Peggy Von Payne, I am here. All right.
All right.
And we got to add it.
All right.
Bill, what's your last name?
It's Dubois.
D-U, capital B-O-I-S?
B-O-I-S, correct.
Okay. Awesome. Welcome.
We got you.
All right. Yes. Yes. All right. Any additional items for the agenda? Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None. Approved. Okay. And then the public comments? None? So, okay. And then approval of the minutes from September 11th. So motion to approve.
There is motion to approve.
Awesome.
Second.
You. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. All right, they are approved. All right, old business, corridor input survey results follow-up. So is that you?
This is something I added to the agenda.
Mhm.
This is more of a follow-up. Not everybody was at the meeting last month. So we had Suzanne Schultz here to present on the results of the survey. If you haven't already, take a look at either the video from the meeting. It's worth it to hear directly from Suzanne. She had a lot of good analysis of the results and the responses, and there's a PowerPoint in our packet. You could go through that. You could watch the video. So if you haven't done that, please take a minute to do that. But also just wanted to have this as kind of any thoughts or questions that bubbled up over the last month, if there are any. And if there aren't, we could move on because we're going to be talking about the survey and the results of it for the next 6 months. So
What's the pleasure of everyone? Any questions, comments?
Because I guess, I mean, next steps, are we all locked in the next steps yet?
yeah, the next agenda item is going to be this corridor action plan. Is my attempt to try to actualize some of the items that came out of this.
Okay, and then is the survey actually officially closed now?
Survey's closed, it's over. Yeah, we did one last push between the last meeting and like 2 weeks out for businesses, because we didn't have a great showing for businesses.
Really?
Not surprising, but because it's just hard to
Yeah.
get in front of everybody. So I made one last push between visiting a couple people, and then we have a couple mailing lists.
How many more did you get? Or what was that?
You know,
total number?
I haven't even seen how many more came in. Yeah, I don't think it was significant.
Okay.
And Suzanne Schultz was actually at the planning conference last week. So just we didn't have time to have her put anything dynamic together for this meeting, but we may use her again in the future. So she's kind of the township's consultant. We don't have a specific contract with her right now for tasks. She came to us to help, establish this group, and you saw her a lot in the previous months.
Yes.
Moving forward, it's going to be more kind of a project-based relationship.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
So that, one of which was the survey, so they helped with the survey.
Yeah, the survey and the administration of the survey, analyzing results, kind of compiling everything was her last project with us in the short term.
Okay.
And you'll see when we get to item 7 or agenda item number 7, you'll see there are some opportunities for her or someone like her to engage with us again.
All right. So it's on you then, Peter.
Okay, so we'll move on to new items, new business, so corridor action plan. Okay, so there's a memo in your meeting packet, and I'm just gonna walk through it. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to take a look, but I'll also review it here. So and keeping in mind, this is my thoughts on it, and I'm bringing this to the group for a group discussion. And inevitably what happens like with staff is you get what I'm thinking first, and then you can react to that, or we can kind of collectively, pick a direction that may totally disagree with where I'm starting. But I like to give you something to react to start with. So we have the surveys concluded. I think it was very successful in terms of reach. We got to a lot of people. As mentioned, the people that we got to were mostly residents. And I think a lot of that was the direct mail piece and the easy access digitally. And it was a pretty quick survey to fill out too. So a lot of people got their eyes on it. It went through a couple big township publications. So a lot of people saw it. I think a lot of people provided some good, genuine feedback on it. On the same note, I'm not sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it told us anything a lot different from what the conventional thinking is about the corridor, or maybe what some of our thoughts were before the survey occurred. So, but if anything, it kind of confirmed what those thoughts were, and it gave us a big an idea of kind of the breadth of concerns, ongoing themes. So it was helpful to see kind of that breadth. Now, I've worked in local government for a long time and I've done other projects like this. It was, you kind of see the same things bubble up, and everybody wants a Trader Joe's, everybody wants, more convenient travel and parking and all that. And their favorite restaurant to locate here.
And they want to lower their taxes.
Yeah. So it's variations on a theme, but I think, getting the survey in front of a lot of people, I mean, it raised the profile just in general of this effort. Corridor effort, I'll say. So the big question is like, how do you make something like this worthwhile and not just be, hey, we did the survey, now we're done, moving on. I want to have it, I think generally we all want it to mean something and have it lead to something. Now, it wasn't, a scientific survey, so it's hard to base a lot of action around just the survey itself, because it wasn't everybody. It was represented a lot of thoughts, but it wasn't kind of definitive. So how do we take this information and do something with it? We have one guiding document for the CIA, this TIF plan, and the TIF plan really statutorily kind of outlines how you can spend your money, and you don't have a lot of it now, but someday you will, if everything stays status quo. Even if it's just status quo now, you'll still over time have significant funds. And how do you leverage that? We don't need to get too into that, but kind of the first steps are just identifying what the projects are going to be, where do we see ourselves making kind of the most impact. So the TIF plan lays that all out, and that is attached. It's after this memo. You've seen it a million times. We don't really need to get into it today, but how can we turn that into something? So actual projects, things that we can work on, have agenda items here, things that I can work on. So a lot of this is assigning me work and kind of how I'm going to plan my work for the next year. Keeping in mind, this is part of my overall job, but obviously this is a big important part of it. So the TIF plan talks about, we've talked about this before, the Saginaw Highway Corridor Plan, and it envisioned the next, a future step, not necessarily on the heels of the survey, but it envisioned the Saginaw Highway Corridor Plan as something that this group is moving towards in the TIF plan. So then what the TIF plan calls that, what the corridor plan could do is identify changes in land use, zoning, streets, and other infrastructure properties along the corridor. So that baked in right there is a pretty broad mission. So you'll see how that's going to permeate further down in my memo here. So and this again, personal thing, corridor plan is such a big thing, and it could mean so many things to so many different people. I've worked in planning for a long time, and these plans just end up kind of going on the shelf somewhere. How do we turn that into, I like action plans, because action plans are like, they're numbered, they're things that we can start to chip away at, they're items that we can have on our agenda. It's not just like a big thing, it's a bunch of smaller action items. So I'm suggesting kind of breaking out that corridor plan into a series of action items and kind of talking about them under the term corridor action plan. And it provides some flexibility, and it can provide kind of bite-sized things that we can work on. And what we could turn this into really will inform the next master plan update. I've talked to the planning director, Gary Bozick, and he's on board with this group kind of taking the lead on presenting. It's known by a couple different names, but a sub-area plan for the corridor would be part of the master plan. So this group taking the lead on kind of identifying what do we see as the major land uses, or what do we see well, we're going to talk about this more in a second, but and then turning that so it could be in the master plan, either by reference or as a sub area plan. And that's gonna be helpful for the planners because they're gonna be pushing this master plan update in the next year here. And so to have a group that's kind of laser focused on the corridor will be extremely helpful. And what I'm gonna do now is just kind of run through how this could all come together, and keeping in mind, just my attempt to kickstart this discussion. So let's just start with one. One is work with the consultant in the township's engineering and utility departments to review utilities along the corridor, identify any needed upgrades or rerouting. So this is something that's gonna have to happen. I understand that the utilities do in some areas need some attention or to understand where they're at. They may need to be moved to accommodate future projects. Do you know any more insight about it than I do?
Yeah, I think it's just, and it's more specifically on the eastern portion of the corridor. The west side, we have a pretty good handle and it's far enough out of the road, but on the east side, our utilities are old. We do need to start looking at a replacement plan for both water main and sewer. And so there's a lot of complexities, crossings across Saginaw. As Peter said, sometime moving that, you see every so often we have a water main break and we have to shut down a lane or two, which is problematic in Saginaw. So something that we need to do a pretty comprehensive study on.
Thank you. So, and you'll hear me say this a lot, but like, what can we do to be development or redevelopment ready? And I know the state has a program called Redevelopment Ready Communities. I'm not suggesting we do that, but we can do our own local version of that. And this is one way. And now keeping in mind, the things that are in your TIF plan are the only things that this group can spend money on. So everything we're talking about today has some kind of foundation in that TIF plan. I'm not suggesting that we go, any a field of any of that. So all this is contemplated in the TIF plan. I just kind of took some of those things and made them into verbs, I guess. Okay, number 2 is engage with the MDOT on its upcoming project on Saginaw Highway. This would be the area from the highway west. So the MDOT will start in 2024 with their design or their public input phase of the project. And I think the way they had it scheduled was like 2024 was public input, 25 and 26 were design, and then moving on to construction potentially 27, 28. So it's a long process, but I think that this group is very well situated and should help lead that. What part of it would be participating in the public input process. So getting the voice of this group and the township in the room with MDOT, reviewing their plan, whatever it is that they will submit as kind of their first draft, and providing feedback. And feedback could be anything that that we want to see and how that corridor on that portion of the corridor develops. Keeping in mind, that it's a dangerous area with the highways and everything, so we may have limited input on that particular part of it. Now, it doesn't mean we won't have any input, but we'll, it's complicated, I'm sure, with the highway in and out. But being part of that process, making sure that everyone else is part of that process, so helping MDOT reach the area stakeholders that everyone's at the table and engaged with the projects, all the business owners in the area, the property owners, property managers, that kind of thing. And then identifying opportunities to leverage the TIF funding, keeping in mind we don't have a lot now, but to enhance that project. So maybe there's going to be something we want to widen a particular sidewalk, or we want to make sure there's a sidewalk connection on the north side of the road. Right now, you can go on the south side, but not the north side. How could we potentially leverage the TIF dollars to kind of go above and beyond what MDOT's already planning to spend and getting some bang for the buck for both of us? So I think number 1, that being a big priority of this group over the next year.
Peter, coming out of our meeting last month, was there any action items
For the
non-motorized?
non-motorized?
Yeah, was there anything there that we were supposed to provide?
Not for this group, no. I think it was
Okay.
just to take the survey to start with. They're on a similar path of public input. Do
Okay,
you know how long the survey runs until?
At least the end of November.
Okay, so it's out for a while.
Mhm.
And it's
Okay.
it's a bit longer survey. If anyone here took it, it's pretty long. So they're still working on getting people to take it.
okay.
And there were some questions kind of focused on the corridor.
Yes,
on
there were.
that,
Yep.
Too, that can share the data once it's obviously.
Were we gonna share our data with MDOT?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And that's the kind of thing that we will need to show them to demonstrate community support for certain things.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll move on to number 3. So number 3 is work with the township's engineering department to strategically implement relevant provisions of that updated non-motorized plan as opportunities arrive. So this is kind of arise. This is our, this is in here because they're, being kind of the stewards of the corridor, as this plan and portions of the plan are implemented, this group can be particularly helpful in that. So some of the ideas here are pursuing sidewalk and pathway connectivity and expansion where possible. So could be, who knows what, projects going in, we have a chance to widen a sidewalk or have one where there isn't one now. And it's on the plan, they're kind of can come all together and we can try to make that happen. Finding ways to connect the corridor through the east-west pathway. Identifying and pursuing opportunities to obtain easements and widen sidewalks. Installing mid-block pedestrian crossings and strategic locations. So part of the non-motorized plan is identifying where the best places for those are. Like where people do cross the road. And then considering upgrades to existing intersection pedestrian crossings. So the MDOT, I think the next level of the MDOT are the voice commands and the textured pavement, that kind of thing. Okay, any questions about number 3?
That's real good.
Number 4 is investigate the feasibility of burying power lines for areas of the corridor. It's identified on the Township Board strategic plan. So there have been initial research and conversations with both Corridor Water and Light, Consumers Energy, and I worked on this when I worked at Meridian Township. The party line is that it's cost prohibitive and challenging from a maintenance perspective. And I don't disagree with that. It's a party line for a very good reason.
Yeah.
It's just an expensive, challenging project. What I'm suggesting here, number 4, is at least to put to investigate the feasibility of it and for whatever portion of land and kind of figure out one way or the other if that's a viable option. And if it's not, to pursue other endeavors and at least put that to bed, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but try to figure it out. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, kind of thing. So I've seen there are studies around that other communities have done. So if we need to have someone to come here to help us figure that out, if it's viable or not for corridor, and provide some reasons why, I think that would be helpful. It's been talked about. So obviously it's a priority of the board. People of this group have mentioned it too.
So we need a benefactor.
What's that?
We need a benefactor.
Yeah, we need a fund,
Yeah.
We need a third party.
Yeah. We need to win some of the lottery.
Grants. Oh, lottery.
Yes.
That's Township's lottery.
I said consumers graduate.
Big benefit.
Yeah.
That's right.
So if you follow this kind of stuff, and I do, consumers is setting up they were doing like a trial in the Detroit area. So they'll have some results of that at some point, but it's just a really expensive endeavor. Bottom line. But we'll have an idea of what exactly it would be in the future. Number 5 is work with the consultant to draft a streetscape plan, streetscape vision for Saginaw Highway. This would be from the highway east to Waverly. This is more of the project that I could see a Progressive AE or some other company helping the township complete. So potential items along the way, and this is kind of more like what a traditional corridor plan would be. It's usually a lot of engineering speak and look at road profiles and access management and kind of what the whole profile of the street from curb to curb, what does that look like? It's obviously complicated, particularly the township doesn't have control over roads. We have to work with MDOT. But with a lot of these things, and I'm not suggesting that we are going to change anybody's mind a lot, but to be that voice in the room that's advocating for what we want to see, and they want it, what we've heard from MDOT, what they want to see is a plan, and they want to see community buy-in. So you've got to demonstrate all of that. So if there's something the township really wants, and I don't know the scope of that right now, but this is the way to get there, is to have it in a plan, have some buy-in, be able to demonstrate that it's something that you really want, that it's feasible. So under this, I have road cross sections. So that could be, I've heard them talk about boulevarding. So I don't know what MDOT's plan for that is yet, but we may have our own plan at some point. greenscape, landscaping, a build to line for future developments. This kind of goes into one of the other items where we talk about zoning and policy. In some communities, they're a required build to line, so buildings have to be up closer to the road and not set far back with parking in front. You want that building right up in front and the parking behind. Reviewing access management is just the ins and outs on Saginaw Highway and connectivity between properties, so that you don't have to loop in and out the highway to get multiple places. And we have a really strong foundation of that already on Saginaw Highway, but it would just be expanding that and, you know, potentially down the road, maybe closing drive. And that, I know that no one else is here to hear me say that, but I know that's kind of scary to say, but. And then opportunities for traffic calming. So those are more of a technical items that typically an engineer or architectural firm would help us figure out. Number 6 is developing recommendations for a corridor regarding future land use and zoning policy. So we would work with our planners on this particular part. And this really speaks directly to the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So reviewing our current building setbacks, building height, lot coverage, parking requirements, other zoning standards, and suggest alternatives if desired. A lot of that stuff, I mean, even for the homeowner, zoning hits you, it's like day one, everybody has to deal with zoning. And our business community on the highway is no different. So these are things that, you know, we may look at the standards and say the status quo is good and working for everybody. We may have different standards to propose otherwise, but just taking a look at all that. Identifying nodes along the corridor and appropriate standards for each. One standard may not work for everybody. I was then kind of where I was going with this is there are different character nodes along the corridor. You've got kind of the west of the highway, you've got from here to the mall, you've got the mall, and you've got east of the mall. And there may be other ways that kind of natural breaks there, that there may be standards, different standards along the corridor, or at least different characteristics. And then considering land uses allowed that along the corridor at appropriate levels for each. For example, mixed use buildings right now are by special land use permit. So they go to the planning commission, they go to the township board. There may be some types of uses that we would want to incentivize, but it's kind of by right use that minimizes the review process or builds, it's really not minimizing the review process. What we do is you build standards so that it's kind of like the form-based code mentality where the community has standards and then people that want to build to those standards, they have kind of a faster checkout through the community. It's like an express lane. It's like you're doing what we want you to do. Come on through. Where there are other ones that get kind of the stop sign and they go through the review process. So that's just one example. And I'm not suggesting any policy changes today. I'm just kind of throwing a bunch of stuff out that we could be looking at.
So I read something about the township approved tiny homes being built.
They approved, so there was an ordinance amendment that allowed, and we have our assistant planning director in the room, and feel free to correct me at any point. It was a policy change to the zoning ordinance, and it allows smaller lots
Yes.
and denser to more of them.
Yeah, it's a cottage house.
Yes.
So it allows the community to have a development like that, but it didn't prescribe in a certain place or anything.
Okay.
It was in reaction to a project that was proposed by the I company, right?
On the property, the developers were from Georgia.
Okay. So there was a project that came along that proposed that type.
Okay.
And so the project didn't happen, but we changed our zoning ordinance to allow it to happen in the future.
All right. Thank you.
And that's the exact kind of thing that I'm talking about, being ready for new things.
Okay.
Any questions about zoning, future land use stuff?
No, looks good.
7 is consider installations of east and west community gateways. I threw this in there. It is in our TIF plan too, just gateway stuff, but you know that when you drive, you hit Waverly, you know you're in Delta Township kind of thing. I don't know what that means, but it's something to consider over time.
Well, there's a something out there.
We got
East
sign,
End
we've
that
got our
says-
banners.
There's a concrete block or something that says welcome to Delta.
Yeah, we've got a sign on
We do have
the
a
sign.
it's north side.
It's out
Yeah.
by the Wendy's.
It's by the
Yeah.
Wendy's, yeah.
Yeah,
No
by
strip.
Wendy's, yeah.
I was thinking something with a little more pizzazz.
Yeah.
And everybody
Like a
sees,
Grand
right?
Prix.
Yeah.
Like a big neon sign.
Exactly.
Welcome to Delta Township. What happens here stays here.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I don't think no neon signs in Delta though.
Easy now. I need
Hey,
to see
zoning
So it's just something fun to think about. Number 8 is conduct a needs assessment for street lighting. I've heard street lighting mentioned. Now, I've driven at night. I think we're pretty solid in terms of coverage for lights, but that's just something that if we, a lot of this is all about process. So it's in examining what we've got now, determining if we need anything different. And
I think that was,
It's more about-
street lighting is one thing, but decorative street lighting
definitely two different things, yeah.
was, I think, something that we want to look into.
Yep, we can look, yeah, we can do it as part of that or however we wanna do it. Number 9, I've got support and develop public infrastructure or public transportation options along the corridor. So one would be installation of covered bus shelters or something like that. Right now, in CATA, as you know, the extension of Route 3 is temporary. It's for 3 years. It's grant funded. They do not have an infrastructure right now for bus riders. Number 2 is, or letter B is enhancement of that route extension. Whatever that means, whether how we support that or help it flourish or thrive, whatever the right terminology is there. And C is establishing a microtransit hub at the Lansing Mall to serve major employers. I've heard this in other areas, in other conversations of the township and in the region of how do we serve our major employers, particularly in the industrial sector. And I think it's from Mr. Funkhauser from CATA, establishing somewhere in Delta, whether it's at the mall. I also heard Lansing LCC West as a hub to provide the microtransit to major employer or to wherever else in the community.
Makes sense.
If a permanent full-on Route 3 or route whatever isn't gonna work for everything, how can we still get people there?
Have we checked with those employers out there? Is there a big need?
I
Is there a
think,
need
yeah,
today?
CATA is working with them right now. Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
so are you talking potentially Amazon, General Motors,
GM,
Myers?
Meyer distribution, yeah.
Okay,
And I think they have some things in place to a certain smaller scale stuff,
okay.
or at least they're working towards that.
Yeah, they're trying to come up with, they're working with CATA. There's a big group that's working on some, potential solutions, because they're just a traditional bus route out there doesn't really work because of the different shifts and just because those are such expansive properties, but they have a lot of micro transit and pulling together different models that have been used in other states. So they're working with those employers right now, which is helpful because we've heard for a long time those employers want something, but it's when you ask what, it's hard to define. So having the public transit folks, both E-Tran and CATA, which are under the same leadership right now, talking to them and trying to come up with a model that'll work for everybody is very helpful.
Good.
Yeah, that would definitely be good.
So number 10 is consider economic analysis of the corridor. I just recently learned actually, so when I started here in April there, I took over a lot of stuff, like physical stuff. And one of those was some CD-ROMs. Of a 2012 corridor market strategy and retail inventory. So there has been some work done, economic analysis of the corridor. So we could review that, revisit it. I don't know the relevancy. I haven't even
Do you
gotten
have
too
a
far into
computer
it.
that operates that?
I did get a drive,
There you
so
go.
I can get all those files and share them with everybody. And then this was a suggestion from Suzanne as well, as she has a couple people that she works with. I've heard a lot of different names: retail void analysis, a leakage report. But basically, what it tells you and my sophistication with economic analysis is not very sophisticated. But I know a retail void analysis would tell you, like, based on the economics of your community, you could support 6,000 square feet of bookstore. And I don't know, I don't know how relevant, how you can then turn that into something. A lot of companies, especially the national companies that we see here, they do their own market research. I don't think that they're looking to the township to justify that. And it would be kind of dangerous ground to say, yes, the economy can justify that, and then you open and don't do well.
I
So
would agree.
she may be able to provide some more information, but just looking at kind of whatever we can do to better understand the economy on the corridor and any strategies that we should be employing that we're not employing. Some of this stuff I think I can do just with my research. We may or may not need to talk to someone, and we might not even find that it's valuable, but I didn't want to leave it out because it's definitely an aspect of corridor groups that you'll see rely pretty heavily on this kind of thing. That leads me to number 11, because some of the things in number 10 we can tackle in 11. And a lot of this stuff is some of the day-to-day work that I do. So it's enhancing business outreach, business development, and communication efforts. And so part of that's just, and what I've been trying to do is identify contact people for all the businesses on the corridor. We have property owners, but getting business people, getting property managers, that kind of thing. Developing a business directory, and I don't want to commit to a shop local first campaign right now, but that kind of thing, like helping people understand that Delta Township and Saginaw Highway Corridor is not just chain restaurants. There's a lot of other stuff here, and help them understand that and try to maybe provide some incentives to shop on the corridor first. Like that's your first, when convenient, that's your first option. And then of course, tracking tenant changes, occupancy, property values, trying to understand that, but also document it so they can see if efforts are employed, you know, are we moving the needle on anything? So, okay, that's a lot of stuff. So that's 11 items on here. This is supposed to be aspirational, I guess, and kind of how we can move forward, kind of knowing what we know with the survey. How can this group kind of focus its efforts over the next year? I don't want to say we're gonna get this done quickly.
Question. Item number 5. Is item number 5 and item number 2, was it?
MDOT?
Yeah,
is
the
number 2.
MDOT piece.
Yeah.
So you broke it up between the highway to Broadbent and then the highway to Waverly, is that
Well,
what?
so
the idea was?
number 2 and number 5 are similar. But the reason I split them up is one, number 2 is happening. The state has identified funding for that
Yeah.
project. They are gonna
Okay.
do it. Barring, you know, big changes. So that was more just like, how can we be a part of that process? How can we be engaged with it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess my thought was the vision. You want, I presume, a consistent vision
Mhm.
throughout the whole corridor, right? So would it make sense to, I think you have it in there, but going from Broadbent all the way to Waverly, make sure that's whatever the township feels is important,
Mhm.
that is highlighted. And so that plan would take into account, yes, they're gonna go ahead with construction for that first segment, but
Mhm.
what we heard was there, you know, ideally, the boulevard would continue in some fashion going to the east, but they just don't have the funds for that now.
That's what I heard as well.
Okay,
But we would be part of that design or contract with,
We would have to, I mean, we would have to work to make ourselves a part of that
Mhm.
process. Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's clear. It's not two, I mean, it's really, right, the idea would be one consistent plan,
Yeah, ideally, yes.
ideally.
The only X factor I see there is the highway. I don't know if that
Sure.
changes the calculus on how much input people have or what kind of street profile is.
Yeah, the highway, but I think the timing also, just because we know that piece is going forward,
Mhm.
so. In the ideal world, you'd love to have the whole stretch perfectly programmed, so I think we try to work towards that, but also there are different dynamics on that section versus this section, so. You know, put focus on this section, but some of these are kind of overall themes that we want us,
I agree with you.
want to
Okay.
continue on and incorporate all the way down. So I think it's a
So you're
good, I think it's a
advising-
good, we try to do them somewhat parallel, but with
Okay,
obvious focus on this to try to meet the, you know, meet the timelines of MDOT to make sure we're involved with their design process, which starts next year in earnest.
Yep. Makes sense.
And I understand that, and I think it's great. It leads me to 2 questions that again, I feel ignorant about, but it seems to me like any strategy should, or we may want to encourage, you know, repurposing buildings, right? As opposed to continuing to see the the move west for lack of a better term, right? To make sure, what if anything does the TIF have, and how do we address it, incentives or encouragement that we can offer to repurpose empty spots as opposed to continuing to, especially with the cost of construction today, repurposing space seems like it's a good thing for everybody, right? Is there anything within a TIF that resources, tools? I understand on the bigger scale, we have brownstone issues, we have money set aside for the mall, which leads me to my second question, not to cut you off before you answer the first one, or educate me, but something like the Lansing Mall that we all agree is critical, just if nothing else, in pure massive scope of it. You know, people are making significant and welcome investments in the Lansing Mall. Specifically, the ZAP zone is a great place to start that discussion. I don't think it ends there. But how do you get a longer vision for the Lansing Mall when the owner of the ZAP zone is pretty committed to the current structure of the Lansing Mall? And I just don't know how that impacts us long-term, or how we can influence that, or are we getting our arms tied behind our back as it relates to a long-term vision for that?
There's a lot, I guess, a lot to unpack there. Well, first of all, as far as the incentives are concerned, there's not really anything in the TIF, because the capture districts were set up. You know, we capture from the entire, or I'm sorry, we capture only from the two
Understood
properties. So we can't put any public dollars into private investments as far as incentives. We did put money into the TIF, or assign some of it to Lansing Mall infrastructure. So that's only dedicated to the, you know, rights of way and water and sewer and that type of thing. And in case there was a good, you know, larger scale redevelopment of the mall. So we do have other tools available in the corridor that are already existing, like the brownfields and that type of thing, that I think are more, I mean, the brownfields, it basically is a TIF. It is a TIF capture. So it would be really no different than any programs that we would have set up through the TIF if we were capturing the entire route. As far as the mall redevelopment, you know, I guess it's a matter of perspective. As far as them parceling off things like the Yonkers building, it does, I guess, tie our hands in terms of getting an overhaul, if that's what, you know, you were hoping for. I guess it's a catch-22, because there is some momentum going with some, you know, some reinvestment into those buildings. I don't know, Peter, you have anything to add?
No, it's a really it's a conundrum. I mean, this is what we're facing with this, and if businesses, if you're maybe not saying it aloud, like the Delta Crossings, that they're just going to cannibalize other businesses that are on the corridor, then move them out there. And then how can we stop that? I don't know if there is a practical way to stop that. At least there's no financial way to stop it.
Well, agreed. I think there can be, from my perspective, naive as it is, there can be marketing perspectives to stop it. And I don't disagree with what you said. I've always kind of envisioned a play off of Michigan Mile in Chicago, right? And coming up with a Delta's Pure Michigan Mile that somehow promotes and encourages independent, privately owned businesses to invest in an area that maybe offers an opportunity to everybody. But man, to see the Hobby Lobby story recreated, that somebody wants to move 2 miles and leave whatever that is, 20,000 square feet of empty space, that is not good for our long-term vision.
If we go back to like the creation of the TIF, I don't disagree with you, and I mean, most people won't. But as Peter said, some of those factors we couldn't we're not necessarily privy to or can't control, or businesses that otherwise might have left Delta altogether.
Of course.
So some have a different, desire to be near the freeway, but when we created the TIF, a lot of the focus was to use that TIF captured, so to leverage the new dollars of investment in the tax capture, the increasing tax values down there, to be able to reinvest into the corridor, to do some of these things to create a better corridor in the aging part, to stimulate some reinvestment and that type of thing. That was the thinking with it. And there's some things that, as I said, Zap Zone is a good example. Hopefully they'll be successful long term. But the CIA creating that corridor allowed us to help them, apply for an additional liquor license that we didn't have available. So there are some of these benefits that may take some time to, I guess, manifest as, tangible improvements, but that was the goal with some of these, future investments, was to leverage that. So we can't control some of the businesses moving down there. We're hoping for all new stuff, but and then leverage some of those dollars to help improve the rest of the corridor, to create a good environment to get also new investment in the older part of the corridor.
Yeah, I mean, I share the vision. The devil, like everything, is in the detail. There's nobody, no business owner, that wouldn't want to be closer to the highway to make it accessible. So saying that and putting some teeth behind it that helps operators, whether that's through, again, marketing a place that they may want to be a part of, creating business startup funds to help independents. So dividing part of the mall, so small business owners could, get space in there. I don't know what it is, and I'm not smart enough to know. I just know that hoping that it happens just because the dollars are there won't do it.
Right. I'd say, though, it's sometimes it's tough to notice, because you probably notice more than any of us, because you're right in the heart of it, but there has been pretty significant reinvestment in the corridor.
Agreed.
It's just very dense, so it's easy to pick out. There's a lot of improvements we want to make, a lot of buildings that we want to change over and that type of thing, but they're tens of millions, there has been tens of millions of dollars reinvested into the older part of the corridor over the last, not that long.
Yeah.
So we are making some progress with that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we all want to be a part of that solution. And that's why I brought it up, so that we could try to build substance into our plan and our vision. Because I think it will naturally and should gravitate towards the new and the expansion, but it doesn't change the burden of there. If you only had that, there would be no reason to have a corridor improvement authority.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth of the matter, is
Sure.
that it's easy to sell, the pretty part and the new and the traffic. And I get, and I don't, at risk of being nauseatingly repetitive, business owners by their nature are negotiators. So people can threaten to leave that stretch all they want. And the quick question is, where else are you going with 37,000 cars a day going by your front door? Right? They're not in Delta Township because they want to be a part of Delta Township. They're a part of Delta Township because they got 37 cars a day going by their front door.
Right, that's right. And to speak more directly to your question about like, what can the Corridor Improvement Authority do? I mean, financially, nothing. I mean, we're, programming's not in our avenue right now. We're pretty strictly infrastructure. So we're gonna have to come up with other ways.
Yeah, I mean,
to deal with
even some flexibility, and again, I don't know that it's possible, but some of the things you talked about, flexibility as it relates to signage or roadscape, or where they have more flexibility to do more things that
policy
let
wise,
them
definitely
attract people. That I think that can be big help.
Yeah, and that's
So-
something one thing I'm trying to suggest here is that we do, you do have a voice in kind of policy development. And from a corridor perspective. And that is things that you can do, and I know this is a relatively young group. But that is something we can kind of foray into over the next whatever amount of time, is making, or at least recommending policies that we think that might get to the ends of what you're talking about. It won't be a financial tip mechanism, but it'll be more of frankly, more of a political kind of effort.
Would that be part of the sub-team that focusing around the master plan? That
would be part of master plan zoning, yeah, and that's where the policy things that Scott's
again,
talking about.
Just playing off of your idea, I mean, I had a similar one, albeit different, but if you all of a sudden created an area, whether it was in Lansing Mall or whether it was a stretch of land from Waverly to somewhere else, right? That you said, we're gonna focus on locally owned businesses and trying to find ways to attract them through policy that we can. There may be other things available. Then all of a sudden you get entrepreneurs thinking, oh, while they're focusing on a Michigan-made focus, that speaks to me. They at least want to learn more about it and see if it's viable.
Yeah, right. Cool. All right, I don't know any other questions about the kind of the plan, or any ideas that I haven't captured? What I've done is really just kind of took all the things that I've heard over the last 6 months and threw them on here in some manner.
It was really helpful for me.
Yeah.
Good work.
Great summarization. I
Yeah.
think so you sort of developed the plan. Now, next step would be the implementation.
Tackling it, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you prioritized the items?
Not necessarily, no. Obviously the MDOT thing, there are some timely elements in here, the MDOT thing being one of them. And there are some things that we can get started on, but it's probably gonna be a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and try to move the needle on all of them. So I guess in the very short term, my plan would be to come back to this group over time with elements of it to work out. Maybe we could pick one and I can flesh them out. Or I could come to you, for example, like with the future land use map, and we can review that together and talk about your options and ultimately make some recommendations to transmit to, in that case, be like the planning director and the planning commission, or transmit things to the township board.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have all that thought out yet, but I wanted to at least get some of this on paper and kind of pick a direction.
I think it's great, and I agree about the prioritization. I would also throw out for the collective group's consideration that I know there's nothing in here that's quote unquote a quick win, right? But I think as we're looking at it, not only should we be prioritizing, and I like very much what you said, I think we also should be thinking about some quick wins, right? Something that the public can see, right? Whatever it is, just so it might be priority number 8, but we can get it done faster too. So let's raise it to the top so we have something to say. Yeah, we've been meeting for 2 years, but we got you a new bus stop, to use Lansing.
I've got a question, and maybe I want to back up to what Scott was talking about earlier. Does the township offer something in the lieu of a facade agreement or facade investment in terms of uplifting?
Yeah, it's the Economic Development Corporation offers that program, so they're able to provide financing for that. It's a very small scale program. They don't have, I think they've got about $60,000 right now.
Okay.
And they have it divided up into like a large project and small projects, so 25K or 5K.
Okay.
I did have a business reach out that wants to do it, that is looking into that program.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's just not enough money to spread around to offer it up to everybody.
The other, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I don't mean to tag on to it like I do with everything else, but Peter's predecessor, which also happened to be Bill Reed, right? Or
what's that?
Ed Reed. Ed Reed.
Yeah.
I was working with him when we were making the investment into One North Kitchen and Bar, and it was meaningful for me, right? The dollars and what was available. However, I think I can speak for a lot of entrepreneurs. The process in and of itself, no problem. The timeline tied to the process big problem, right? It's just not functional for an entrepreneur to say, oh, you gotta get 3 quotes, you gotta find this estimate, you gotta get that stuff. It's like, my business was open 6 months before we did that, right? And then the rule says you can't do it and then ask for the money after the fact. You have to get it all approved before you can ask for the money. Like, I'm not putting, and I don't think any other entrepreneur is either, putting off the opening of their restaurant when they've got money invested, you know, another 3 or 6 or 9 months to get $5,000 to help with their facade. So I think that that is a policy type decision that needs to be reviewed.
Sure.
That could help. Signage would be another one that we did, that there's some real old signage issues. Brian came out and met with me, and they're pretty challenging.
Moving on.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding, Scott.
Okay, thank you for that
No.
explanation. I didn't know if that was.
So glad you teed
tap
it up for
into.
me.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions about this? But you know, we can, this is intended to be, to revisit.
Mhm.
But I was hoping that this would help kind of this group just kind of focus where we're going now that the survey is done, now that the CIA is up and running. Where do we go from here? So.
How much money do we have in the?
Yeah, we haven't seen any
50 cents.
financial
I put the-
reports yet.
Financial report, yeah.
Yeah, it's in our financial report, I think. 151,000.
I mean,
I think we capture roughly 180,000 a
Yeah.
year.
Right now.
Is that
And
what
we
it
had to
is?
pay
Okay.
you, we had to pay the township.
Okay, 100.
back some of the funds.
Yeah, some of the funds, yeah. I think this will be the last year though,
Mhm.
so yeah, Peggy's talking about some of the repayment from the creation of the.
Yeah,
For our legal fees and that type of thing. And Suzanne's
sure.
a lot of time, so.
So of that original amount, how much of it has gone to paying your invoices thus far?
Well, it was 50, what was it? 57 or something at the earlier 2 months ago, we paid. There's another 50 that's scheduled. And then I think that's it. So there's one $50,000 payment next year. And then that's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But
Minus any other costs that we accumulate
But the delta right now, we have 150 right now.
in, I think
In-
total approximately.
In the.
Oh, no, in your
fund-
balance,
fund
it's, yeah,
balance.
151,000, yes,
150 is the
in your
net.
bank account, it's
Yeah.
that
Okay.
much, yep.
And I'm not sure if we're looking to do some of the prioritizing but I agree that if we are even trying to have any of that discussion, any time related elements, certainly MDOT being maybe the only urgent time related, that should be near or at the top of our list. And then beyond that, I would personally vote for the engaging in the actual, you know, hiring an architect and getting some drawings and consultants and ideas. Because again, I think that's a win that all of a sudden gets in the newspaper and says, you know, here's an early thing that we're looking at and people get excited about. Oh, or you also are gonna elicit negative responses, like, why are you thinking that? But that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that was my initial thought too, Scott, was you could maybe couple both of them together. Yeah, focus on the first part here because of the potential transportation dollars, but it's really gonna be
part of that.
part of that.
Makes sense.
The big
Well, it sets
plan.
the stage for the rest of it
It
too.
really does. I think there's some energy there that we could get some mileage out of.
Cool. So we can bring this back next month, and if anyone has any different, or if the people that are here today have different thoughts about it, or if we want to add or move, subtract, change.
Okay, that sounds great.
That's that's
What's
Put
item
that
number
in.
2 then?
Yeah,
The
what's
CIA
item 2?
informational meetings.
Yeah.
okay. No, yep, next. So there's a memo in the packet on that one. This is a brief one. The tax law changed last year or 2 years ago, the Tax Increment Financing Act. And it require, and thankfully, she's not in the room right now, but Courtney Nichols, our finance director, brought this to my attention. I had no idea about it. We're required to hold 2 informational meetings per year. And they have to notice the taxing jurisdictions that levy taxes that we capture to do that. So we're gonna do that. And get them, they'll be in November and December. I say in the memo here, this act does not prescribe an agenda or say that you've got to do anything. You don't have to do anything. I mean, it could just be a regular meeting, but they get invited. So they may or may not come.
Is this the public?
Taxing
Or
jurisdictions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't think that they would probably come, but they might.
That'd be cool.
And it would just be here to see what we're up to and just to have a voice because we are collecting their tax, kind of collecting
And
their
that's,
taxes.
who is that's,
Oh, it's whatever, 10 different.
is there? Okay.
LCC,
See.
Eaton County,
County.
Oh, wow, okay.
Delta Library.
The people who signed in.
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
approval,
originally, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But technically, they're part of the public, they could come anytime.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's just a formality.
Yeah, we're just required, but state law requires we send them a formal notice,
Gotcha.
say, here, come on down.
Good.
That's that.
Very good.
Yeah.
So it's no additional meetings, it'd be
No,
They'll
just be
include
for
them.
November, December. We just need to declare that they're public informational meetings.
very good.
All right.
All right, so,
Thank you.
so we will be having our December meeting then.
It's early, it's like on the 11th, so it's early
Yeah.
enough in the month.
No, I'm just checking.
Yeah.
Are you trying to go somewhere?
No.
My
I'm
philosophy is
just
that
checking.
I always try to make things for meetings, so if we want to
Yep.
cancel, I'm always gonna probably
I'm gonna
have
put
it
that on my
prepared to
calendar.
meet.
So what's the date of that?
It
one?
would be
December what?
December 11th.
11th. Okay.
Yeah, with these informational meetings are statutory though, so
Yeah.
it would be helpful if everybody made an effort to
Yeah.
try to make these meetings, so we don't have to
Yeah.
cancel because of
No,
quorum.
I'm putting it in right now.
Then we can at least check that box and
When
then
is the,
next year we'll make sure that we spread.
Yeah, I'll do it
not
way
have-
earlier.
Yeah,
are we
So-
still doing the second Mondays?
Yep, second
I just
Monday of the
don't have
month,
them going out.
So
Oh,
we
yes,
got-
I got them.
November 13 and December 11.
So,
I got them.
so there's nothing that prevents us from having a regular meeting and then having our informational meeting on the same.
It would all be the same, it's gonna be the same meeting.
Oh, the same meeting?
Yep.
Aren't they 2 separate meetings?
That we have to have 2 informational meetings, but they can run in conjunction with our regular meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So they could ask questions at any time, or do we have?
We can structure, we can structure however we want to, but I would suggest we just follow the typical meeting format. If they want to ask questions at the beginning, they can.
And then at the end,
Yeah,
okay.
if someone reaches out to me and says, hey, hey, I got your notice, I really want to talk to the group, I'll communicate with you and you could add them
Okay.
as an agenda item.
Is it, how is information, is it, Peter, how is the information or our progress getting updated to the trustees?
to the Delta Township trustees. Usually, I send out email updates or I'll give a report at one of our board meetings in my manager's report. I know a couple of them will go on and watch the meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, trustee Fido, I know watches, or treasurer Fido watches, has commented to me that he's watched them.
Good.
Good.
Any feedback? Actually, that's a
Yeah.
good question. Anything for us to be aware of?
No,
Good or
I
bad?
know some
I
of the things we
know-
talked today might raise some ears.
Yeah.
What's that?
Do they get a copy of the minutes then as well?
They're not distributed to them, but they're available.
Available to everyone.
They, they're on the distribution for the meeting. So when we email you for that the meeting, they're on the distribution for the packet, I think.
Oh, for the, I don't know, I don't send it to the board,
Oh, okay.
but I will and moving
Yeah,
forward, okay.
Okay, and we used to do that, so they would get copies of the minutes and everything.
Yeah, sorry. I
I'm
didn't
just
know
curious,
that.
everything we do is gonna eventually go in front of them and so we're separate committee.
Yeah, we just wanna stay-
connected. May as well
Yeah.
try to
The
keep everything.
communication. and
Yeah,
stuff, so that there's no-
they're not shy about asking questions.
Huh,
Very
shocking.
true.
Yes.
I say that as anybody on the call today.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Any other information on that, or we can move on to other?
We can move on.
All right, other business staff updates.
The only staff dates I have for you, there's just a 1-page update on your finances in the packet. And then we've just got the typical tenant tracking thing that I prepare. Nothing particularly, I mean, you've heard, I think just about everything is in here already. You do have, I've sent around a grand opening invite for Americana Bistro at Lansing Mall. So if anyone's available for that, I'd love to, if you could make it. It's on the 18th at 11, I think. I sent you an email and I'll send you a reminder next week.
Okay.
What's
But
it
that's,
called?
I met, his name is Torian Guyton. He came in, he had met with one of the township board members and I met him through, connected to him through that. And it's a Waverly High School grad that's just trying to make it work here. He's a HR director at a auto plant in Grand Ledge. And in his spare time, he's also like a cordon bleu chef, trained chef, and has been working this Guyton's heirloom cuisine. He had two spots at the Meridian Mall. He had a spot in the food court at the Lansing Mall. Now he has a space in the former Chipotle, the perimeter, I call them the perimeter spaces out front. So he doesn't even have a sign up yet, but he's active on social media. He's trying to make it work. He has a guy that runs that kitchen, but he's the chef behind all of it. I mean, he's got big plans. He's incorporating an academy, like a chef's academy as part of the restaurant here, trying to teach people to like an intern training program, basically. And then he's also planning on making a food truck happen at some point. So I just am trying to be a supportive, local guy trying to make it work here.
Sure.
Okay, say the first name of it.
His name is Torian Guyton,
Okay.
but the restaurant's Americana Bistro, and they do southern like comfort food. At least at this place. I think he's got a catering business too. So there's that one, and there's been a couple new tenants at the mall. I told Tony before everybody came in, but I got a call from actually someone at the Convention Visitors Bureau, or Choose Lansing, as they prefer to be called now these days. A Lego reseller, like Lego toys,
Really?
is gonna go into the former fiber gaming place over there at Brookside by Ohana.
Oh.
Yeah, they were for a while there was like an online gaming
Yeah.
PC repair place, so they're gonna
Oh,
go
they're
in
not
there.
there? Or are they still there?
Oh, the PC repair place closed.
They did. Okay.
Yeah, so they'll be opening a retail store there.
Mhm.
I haven't actually met the new people yet, but that's an exciting new tenant.
That's good.
Otherwise, all the other projects are in the thing here. I did talk recently to Mike at Zap Zone. They're gonna be open before Christmas
Oh, great.
and hopefully be ready for office parties and everything. I poked my head in there. It's kind of hard to imagine they're gonna be open, but it'll all come together quickly. Cause it's moving quickly. They've got like 50 guys, over there
Really?
working right now. Yeah, it's crazy.
What's going into that other place that used to across, so down by, it used to be kind of like a kid place. Is there a pool or something going in there?
Where
Okay, so
at?
think
In the mall?
Zaytoons, but no, not in the mall.
Oh.
Down from Zaytoons. What does that place used to be called? It was a kid place for birthday parties and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Next
Golden
to
Corral?
Smoking Pig?
Yeah, not in that plaza.
Oh, not in the plaza?
It's, a
Is it
separate
where the
building.
Golden Corral is? The big empty restaurant?
No, not Golden. So go further north. I'm sorry.
Further north. Where the post office.
Back there?
On the other side. So on the other side. So
Other
think stay
side.
tuned straight back down. And there used to be.
The old Zap Zone.
Yeah, the old Zap
Yeah.
Zone, right.
Oh, yeah, that's to be it's not exciting, storage facility.
Storage.
Yeah,
I
he's
heard
gonna
there
be
was a
out of there
pool or
by
something
November or
going in there. I
something.
was like, what?
No, they're doing storage, so
Okay.
they'll start on that soon.
At least
Gotcha.
it's not sitting vacant.
Yeah, it won't be a vacant property.
They have started, or they have, the construction has started. I think they're building around the
Yeah.
Zap Zone right now.
Really?
And they're taking down.
I thought they were taking the Zap
they'll take it
Zone's going
down.
away.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, sorry you didn't work picking it up there.
All right. Any other staff updates? Are we done?
No, thanks for the discussion today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So our next regularly scheduled meeting is Monday, November 13th, 4 PM. You also have the December date, December 11th at 4 PM. And let's see, we don't have any closed sessions, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support?
Second.
All right,
Yep.
all right.
Hey,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Meeting's adjourned.